The Sleepy Village. Part 2. Last time, we left Bruno traversing the silent dunes as he made his way to Cabo Polonio. He was in that blissful state of solitary intentionality. He could now make out the village. Empty little streets, small shops and restaurants that were already closed, and no one around except a skinny ginger tabby cat lying in front of a shop, yawning. Although he knew it was the low season, Bruno was surprised at how quiet it was. He'd expected to see at least some locals in the streets. He had to find his cabin. The owner had written to him, in English, that he would meet him there, in front of the orange and blue cabin by the sea. As he walked through the village, he found that all the shops and restaurants were closed. He looked at his watch. 4:27 p.m. He wasn't far from the sea now. When he reached the strip of colorful cabins, he spotted his accommodation immediately. It was exactly as pictured, light blue with orange-bordered windows and doors. A fat man stood in front of it. He was probably around 70, with sunburned skin and long white hair. There was a white cat draped around his shoulders as he smoked. They didn't say much to each other. Bruno's English was poor, and the man, a foreigner from somewhere in northern Europe, didn't speak a word of Portuguese or Spanish. He ignored Bruno's attempts to ask questions. He handed him his keys, patted him on the back, and walked away with his old blue-eyed cat. The cat stared at Bruno over his owner's shoulder. Weird. Though it was quite cold inside, the cabin was comfortable and simply furnished. Bruno didn't have much to unpack. He was quite hungry and decided to wander out for a meal. It was dusk, and he thought that a few restaurants must be open by now. This time, when he walked along the beach, he saw signs of life. There were a few fishing boats in the distance, and a few people walking along the shore. They looked like they came from all over the world. They took their time, walking slowly, whispering in clusters. Many stared at him before turning their heads. He wasn't used to this pace and silence, but he quite liked it. Finding a restaurant, unfortunately, proved harder than expected. As he looked at the signs on the doors, he noticed something strange. The business hours were unlike any he had ever seen. One restaurant was open from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. only. Another for merely a few hours before 9 a.m. Sometimes there were none written at all. Some places had a sign saying, "Depends on the day, the weather, and by mood." Was this a joke? At last he found an open bar. A heavily made-up Brazilian waitress with the longest red nails stood there, looking extremely annoyed by his presence. "You've got 15 minutes and I'm closing. We have rice and stew. That's all," she snapped. Bruno was hungry, so he acquiesced. The meal was mediocre and rushed. Unsurprisingly, he was their only client. As soon as he'd paid, she shooed him out and banged the door in his face. Well, he wouldn't be going back there anytime soon. He went back to the orange and blue cabin. A black cat had followed him there, and when he tried to shut the door, the animal let out a loud meow. Bruno let him in. Weary from the journey, he fell asleep within minutes. It was around 3 a.m. when a noise awoke him from his peaceful slumber. There were whispers coming from the living room. The floorboards were creaking. Could it be the black cat? He got out of bed and was shaken by an outraged yelp as he stepped on the black cat's tail. The animal had been sleeping on the rug next to him. But then, who was it walking and whispering in the living room? We'll find out next time.